Within each of us resides a duality. The ethereal spirit, an ageless architect of wisdom and dreams, and the earth-bound body tethered to the familiar comforts and limitations of the physical world. This dance between our higher and lower selves is a timeless struggle, a symphony of conflicting desires and aspirations. Our higher self, the conduit to the infinite wisdom of the universe, whispers of limitless potential and untapped power. It urges us to break free from the chains of doubt and fear, to transcend the mundane, and to embrace the extraordinary. Yet the lower self, rooted in the tangible and the known, often dismisses these whispers as mere fantasy, clinging to the perceived safety of the familiar. Prentice Mulford, a pioneer of the New Thought movement, explores the transformative power of thoughts in his book, Thoughts Are Things. In this summary, we delve into Mulford's profound teachings, revealing how our minds hold the alchemical key to shaping our reality. By understanding and harnessing the power of our thoughts, we can create the life we desire, unlocking a world of infinite possibilities. Let us embark on this journey of self-discovery and transformation together. In the realm of our minds, every thought is a building block, shaping our destiny for better or worse. Our thoughts sculpt our faces, infuse them with unique expressions, and dictate our behaviors, presence, and even the form of our bodies. The laws of perfect beauty and perfect health are one and the same, both entirely dependent on our state of mind, or more precisely, on the harmony of our dominant thoughts, both those we project and those we receive. The immense power of thought is not only wasted, but often misused due to ignorance and ingrained habits. We continuously accumulate greed, envy, mockery, and other vices, then discharge them, passing the true essence of these thoughts through distorted filters onto others, potentially harming them but always harming ourselves. Just as harmful gases can seep into our homes, the thoughts of others can penetrate our being. Repeat the mantra, "I will not be enslaved by anyone," and you will find the path to liberation from dependency and want. Our dreams, whether woven of gold or explosives, determine our fate. The deeper our dreams, the more perfect our introspection and abstraction, and the greater the reach of our mental force extending thousands of miles. All that we call occult forces, such as telepathy, are generated in this way. Any thought, if held with sufficient intensity, can instantly materialize. These forces are potentially available to everyone. Each day we inhabit a different facet of ourselves, assuming various imaginary roles. The role we play most frequently molds our body, giving it the mask of that role, its dominant aspect. Those who habitually complain, indulging in ill humor and lamentations, poison their blood, and mar the features and understanding of their faces. In the invisible laboratory of their minds, a malevolent agent is being crafted. Thought once put into action, that is, once thought, generates an inevitable law that attracts similar thoughts. Surrendering to a state of irritation and impotence opens the floodgates to the thoughts of all the irritated and impotent in the world. It charges your great magnet, the spirit, with harmful and destructive currents and connects your mental battery to all currents of the same kind. He who thinks of stealing and murdering enters into spiritual contact with all the thieves and murderers worldwide. We all end up as we are accustomed to seeing ourselves, and we must not allow others to mold us according to their thoughts, that is, in the way that is most convenient for them. Hence, the ideal of the good child, or the exemplary wife, is imposed. What is truly feminine will only be known when women begin to shape themselves. When this happens, the world will suddenly be twice as psychically rich as it is now, where man, exclusively pursuing his own ideal of masculinity, has decreed a forced ideal of femininity. Those who are perpetually cautious, constantly anticipating and weighing every possibility, often fall into the very traps they fear. This is because dwelling on difficulties can inadvertently create them, a habit so deeply ingrained it seems impossible to break. Whatever you focus your thoughts on, you attract more of the same from the unseen realm. Meditate inwardly on any type of crime, and you'll draw criminal realities towards you from the hidden side of life. These unseen forces pave the way for crime, easing its path into our existence. If you habitually read about murders, robberies, scandals, and tragedies in your morning newspaper, you're attracting similar unseen energies. You tune into lower spiritual events, which pass through and influence you, making you more susceptible to them, even physically. You increase the chances of being touched by something from this realm of conflict, especially if you've done this for years while eating breakfast, a state of passive absorption. Perhaps the wise barbarians of the Western world aren't so advanced after all. The esoteric, childlike peoples of the East prefer to greet the morning with a hymn to the sun or a mantra, rather than reading a catalogue of horrors. Everything is reality flowing in the unseen. Those who immerse themselves in these currents of the lowest, most horrific and petty aspects of life, even as interested observers seeking a thrill, are ultimately swept away by them. The circuit is closed, allowing the current of evil and crime to flow. Those who enjoy reading about robberies and thefts are at greater risk of attracting more of the same into their lives and homes. These individuals and thieves are drawn to each other because they swim in the same river of thoughts, unaware of the power that unites them. No power is as irresistible as that which we are unaware of, for we cannot resist what we do not perceive. Someone who spends 10 seconds imagining something abominable and terrible, something that would cause another person to despair, has set in motion a force that will partially rebound upon themselves. Conversely, someone who imagines something pleasant and loving, something that would bring joy to another, sets in motion a force that will also partially benefit them. The longer our senses are directed towards an object for good or ill, the stronger its invisible reality becomes. Eventually, it will be forced to mature, constantly nourished by new thought substances, as either an agent of joy or an agent of pain in the visible world, which is nothing more than the densest level of the invisible world. Directing the mind towards a goal willingly and without hesitation, creating a desirable and joyful atmosphere for an indefinite period, is not currently in vogue. But perhaps it's time to reconsider. What occupies the minds of those around us? Perhaps the price of beer, a weekend getaway, or the latest fashion magazine. Women are often preoccupied with the latest trends, a bridge game, or their summer vacation plans, always looking ahead with a vague undercurrent of eroticism. Rarely do they possess the strength to truly confront life, merely entertaining it with countless mornings and afternoons that could and should be seized by the throat, one after another. Our state of mind often orchestrates events in our favor or against us. Some individuals are born with souls, but lack drive, purpose, or direction, unable to care for themselves or preserve their inheritance. They are textbook examples of a mindset that breeds failure. Others, born into poverty, manage to accumulate wealth from the outset, directing all their thoughts and will toward a goal and achieving success, if making money can be considered a success in itself. The advancement of any enterprise begins with imagination. Those who rise from humble beginnings to become owners of 12 railway companies are always spiritually ahead of their current position. As soon as they reach one level, they are already yearning for the next. Someone who endures years as a rag picker has evidently never envisioned themselves in another situation, never mentally surpassed the boundaries of their occupation. They may envy those in better positions, desiring their possessions, but they have never told their own soul, "I want to break free from this trade, and I will achieve it. I will rise to something purer and more elevated than collecting rags." Mere envy does not propel one forward, and such a person will remain a rag picker their entire life. Those who view the finer things in life as unattainable, who sit on the first rung of the ladder, complaining about everyone above them, will likely remain at that level. Any spiritual posture we remain inert in for a certain period directs us towards things in life that reinforce that posture. Someone who has decided to start a business or develop an invention molds something from invisible elements, yet these are as real as any machine made of iron or wood. In turn, that enterprise or plan will attract more forces that favor its realization, forces that will materialize in the visible world. However, those who fear misfortune, who live in constant dread of encountering something bad or an accident, are constructing a world of thoughts that attracts a silent force. This force, according to the law of attraction, gathers harmful and destructive elements around them. Both success and failure originate from the same law, which can benefit both the person attempting to save someone from drowning and the person stabbing them. The power of thought is immense, and it is up to us to harness it for good or ill. With every thought, we engage in an act of creation, forging something from unseen elements. These creations contain forces that can either empower or hinder us, depending on the nature of the thoughts we have previously transmitted. The cornerstone of any successful endeavor in this life and beyond is to never deem anything impossible and never dismiss an idea outright, no matter how wild or outlandish it may seem. Allow your instincts time to gather, for they are not always present when you need them. Only then, perhaps, will that delicate dew of dawn appear, reserved for those patiently waiting in the antechamber of what is to come. Yet this grand and pure miracle, even if visible to all, would last but a fleeting moment, instantly and effortlessly absorbed into the collective consciousness of humanity. The more audacious and fantastical a thought, the more time it needs to take effect. To cry impossible, simply because something seems improbable, is to cultivate a harmful habit of rejecting things on principle. Our consciousness acts as a prison, full of doors that bar entry to the infinite. Both inside and outside this prison, only an insignificant and solitary human being remains. The power of our state of mind reigns supreme, regardless of what happens to us. The cause is always a state of mind rehearsed over time. He who silently and unwaveringly harbors a fervent desire for success drinks from the invisible river, drawing as many auxiliary forces for their spiritual blueprint as an embryo draws from its mother's blood. According to the established plan, they unconsciously and infallibly absorb all the elements needed for each stage of their development. For the fortunate, the entire cosmos acts as a placenta, nourishing their actions with supportive forces. By auxiliary forces, we primarily mean ever-increasing spiritual fertility and the discovery of new paths and means. This is why we use the phrase "things happen on their own." Language has long recognized this, and grammatically we all utilize this great creative word, see, perfectly, yet we fail to put it into practice. In essence, auxiliary forces means that we will always encounter the right people to help us carry out our plans. The universe conspires to support those who dare to dream, those who refuse to be limited by perceived impossibilities. Embrace the power of your thoughts and watch as your reality transforms before your very eyes. Never waste your energy trying to grasp auxiliary forces and their helpers with your physical senses. Let your unconscious mind handle that. Your only task is to provide the right environment. Just as a pregnant woman allows the embryo to grow naturally, according to its own secret inherited laws, ultimately enabling the new being to see the light of day, so too does the spirit behave during the gestation of a plan. Think ceaselessly. I am determined, onward. Think not only with your brain and heart, but with every movement, every cell. This will generate a force that will carry any idea into reality as surely as a crane lifts its load. The forces born with the spirit in the unseen realm continue to act even when the body is unconscious. In dreams they awaken and glimpse all open paths, and a multitude of new plans and methods converge toward the beloved goal. These new plans are what set the body in motion. You will be unable to remain still, seeing beforehand how everything unfolds. Now is the time to act with due speed and certainty. However, it can also happen that before reaching this maturity for action, one is already so exhausted from searching for opportune moments that one lacks the freshness needed to assimilate the liberating idea when it truly appears. All entrepreneurial success is based on the continuous flow of new plans, thoughts, combinations, and ideas. Conversely, dwelling on misery, calamities, and crimes undermines the ability to attract good things. It's a method of stealing money from your own wallet and health from your own body. When you surround yourself with grand and healthy things, well-being can grow almost limitlessly, even if only in your imagination. Envision a world full of young and free animals, forests, and seas. If you are not fortunate enough to have dogs, deer, and birds as living friends, at least dream of them. If you feel oppressed and weak, Unable to escape the city, let your spirit soar through storms and tides, or visit a circus and experience firsthand the feats of beautiful horses, agile acrobats, and clowns. Observe how, in this atmosphere of psychic diversity, the worries of the audience unconsciously fade from their faces. What we call the driving force of the state of mind is not the longing for material objects. Longing is always accompanied by impatience and suffering, and impatience takes away what is desired, or at least delays its arrival. When you think, "I want it right here and now, I'm tired of this eternal waiting, now or never," you are on the wrong path. You waste your energy in fights and arguments because the desired object has not reached you, and you do not concentrate your forces on the desire itself, where it needs to act, but on the non-existence of the desired object, thus reinforcing its absence. Never go too far in desire. Don't let a desire break your heart as if someone in anger were to destroy their car because it got stuck in the mud. It's better to use your strength to get the car out of the mud. However, those who have managed to avoid destroying the cradle of their desire must be careful not to make another mistake. As tempting as it may be to superficially envision yourself in the desired situation, as if you had already achieved your goal, as if it were merely an image, even an idealized one, this approach is not productive. Imagine someone who wishes to own a beautiful and unique house to live in with a loved one. It won't help them to imagine their life in this house as if it were a movie, watching from the outside as if looking in a mirror. They must be inside, within the desired self. In other words, the authentic inner strength of the spirit would be something like this. May my pure and joyful self be complemented by all these things. I need to have such a house around me, such a loved one, and I will achieve it, as long as there is a wiser will than mine that has decided that all this will be for my good. It must be a state that emanates from the heart, entirely positive, and at the same time sweet, sunny, and determined, never accompanied by doubts, irritation, or impatience. To maintain this correct state of mind, it is neither necessary nor advisable to always have the desired object in mind. The only thing capable of attracting success, beauty, and joy is our habitual mental state, not the continuous thought of the thing we desire. If you can anchor this mental state in your heart and calmly tell yourself, "I will travel, I will see the most beautiful tropical countries," then you can peacefully forget that desire for a while. Entertain yourself with other things and prepare your desires in other fields without delaying the force that will lead you to realize that journey. Each time that desires to know exotic countries returns to you, you only have to integrate it again into the spirit of your unwavering will to achieve it. Nothing influences the success or failure of any desire more than our predominant state of mind, more than work, intelligence, sharpness, or application. Each spirit is a sum of psychic substances collected in the infinite abyss of time, built from the experiences and memories of countless bodies. This psychic substance acts like a magnet, with the ability to attract and transmit thoughts, and like a magnet to increase its strength through work. Just as any piece of iron can be magnetized by contact, any person, even one who lacks talent, can attract spiritual forces and thus become spiritually creative. The currents to which a person opens themselves will determine the quality of their spiritual charge. If the person emanates decision, hope, joy, strength, justice, patience, order, and precision, over time, they will attract more of these thought elements present in the environment. A magnetic vortex is created, carrying forces of the same sign faster and faster toward the center, because the elements themselves are now in space, attracting other similar elements. The bodies we will encounter in the future, whose function is to encourage or destroy us, are these elements with which our fluids have already mixed long before, when they were still far from the body. What is the meaning of life? No one can evaluate the meaning of their own life, which is determined by a higher universal destiny, a law that dominates and guides us. Towards what? Towards an ever-increasing and unlimited capacity to be happy every day and every hour. We advance towards happiness with increasingly sensitive, wiser, and clearer organs. As much as appearances may seem otherwise, the pains we suffer come from the very growth of the spirit, which presses us harder each day against the causes of our misery. Thus we immediately perceive and accept that pain as proof that we are on the wrong path and that we must get out of it, whatever the cost. To those who earnestly seek the right path, guidance will always appear. A subtle yet profound law dictates that no authentic plea goes unanswered. Every intense and genuine desire or prayer must bear the desired fruit. Those who seem plagued by mistakes may be the kindest and most well-intentioned, but they speak harshly to themselves, unaware of where their destiny wishes to lead them. Like a horse trembling under the whip, they are unable to leap over an obstacle. Where there is suffering, there is error. Where there is pain, there is always something amiss. Pain is the compass guiding us to the islands of the blessed. In the small circle of the wise, some live in such harmony with the infinite that their destinies no longer recognize the suffering of winding paths. Yet these few sages knowingly retain a small flaw, a weak point in their psyche, to possess an earthly compass capable of measuring the slightest deviations from the truth, whose needle reacts to the smallest error with the body. Every thought or expressed desire brings us closer to the desired outcome, with an intensity directly proportional to the intensity of the desire and the number of people who share it. These individuals direct spiritual functions towards specific orbits, setting in motion the silent forces of will that will help shape their desires. The secret of magic lies in the human being's ability to harness the most subtle and intense mental waves for their benefit. Happiness and health are intertwined with the fibers of our being. We must envision ourselves liberated from all evil week after week, month after month, and year after year, until this dream becomes a fixed idea, second nature, so that it can continue to act in the subconscious. Never anticipate illness or pain for tomorrow, no matter how much illness or pain you have today. For tomorrow, expect only health and strength. In other words, health, beauty, and strength must become your daily dream, because a dream expresses the correct mental state much more clearly than hope. Faith is the seed of all miracles, but both good and evil can germinate from this seed. From the seed of evil, a tree can grow in whose crown every noisy bird of ill omen will nest. Our murky and gloomy imagination has faith in misfortunes. When one of our organs causes us slight discomfort, after a day or two, we begin to expect that discomfort and imagine the organ is sick. Then we hear that this ailment has a pompous and dangerous-sounding name, which intensifies the belief in misfortune. The influence of other brains appears. Friends and relatives worry and scare us, reminding us of our condition. With all this, we fall into a vicious cycle that weakens us further. No one transmits their own image of strength and well-being to us. The imagination of being sick reaches us from all sides. The spiritual forces of everything around us act in the wrong direction. When a friend says goodbye with a "get well soon," they do so with a compassionate, worried tone that seems to foreshadow the worst. Now we receive the substance of what we had. Relatives who worry about us only encourage our ruin. People with whom we only have professional or business ties have little importance. But we must be careful with whom we share our most intimate moments. When we let ourselves go, when we are in a passive state, whoever shares those moments with a person, whether man or woman, who is not at their level, will lose much spiritual strength in the things they undertake, because that inferior person will divert their line of action, or, at the very least, influence it. Therefore, much will depend on the person with whom we share our intimacy. These individuals possess elements that can signify life or death, courage or cowardice, security or insecurity for us. A sum of unconscious tyranny often emanates from family ties. Adult children frequently assign their parents internal roles in life that they are unwilling to occupy. The essence of this thought, never openly expressed, could be formulated as follows. Our mother is too old to wear such bright colors. It would be ridiculous for our widowed mother to remarry. It's only logical that our mother doesn't want to participate in our parties. Mom doesn't want to join our festivities. It's better for her to stay home and take care of the children. It's time for Dad to retire from the business. When it comes to achieving results, no mental force acts with such subtlety. None is as powerful for good or evil as that current of homogenized thoughts that, emanating simultaneously from several people, concentrates until it produces the desired effects on a specific person, either consciously or unconsciously. The force acts and produces a result. If the same opinions of 3 or 4 people are directed towards the being who has given them new bodies, whom they call mother, the force of those opinions will be powerful enough to place the mother precisely in the most convenient place for the children. Thus, this whole process of conventional thinking could be expressed as follows. Mom is getting older, and it's natural for her to gradually withdraw from active life and stay at home so that she can enjoy herself there with other retired relatives and assert herself as superior in times of illness or during family events. Due to the effect of this unified sentiment surrounding them, many mothers lose their privileges as individuals and behave exactly as their children unconsciously want them to. There are mothers who say, "I don't care what happens to me as long as my children grow up healthy. Then I will have fulfilled my mission." However, a mother must be very aware of what will become of her, because if her growth in wisdom and culture is limited, the growth of her children will also be limited. A good mother will always do everything possible so that her children admire her as much as they love her. But admiration and respect are reserved for those women who defend their place in life with integrity, strength, and freedom, and who grow tirelessly towards ever new goals. No mother can expect too much love and respect from adult children who hide in a corner of the kitchen, who become a symbiosis between nurse and nanny, and who teach their family to be used as pack animals for all real or imagined domestic calamities. Precisely for the above reasons, many mothers are belittled by their adult children or simply dismissed. Mothers who stoop to such a point because they mistakenly believe they are doing their children a favor often end up bitterly paying for that mistake. Those who constantly yield to the dictates of others, abandoning their own inclinations and goals, living to satisfy the desires of others, gradually lose the right to make decisions for themselves. They accumulate so many external thoughts around them that they end up becoming part of them, a silent instrument obeying the unspoken will of those around them. Such a person becomes a fossil, a helpless servant who gradually loses the physical and spiritual capacity to undertake anything. A grandfather, a useless old man sitting in front of the stove, tolerated rather than cherished. In many cases, this is due to the thoughts that adult children have about their parents, who have sacrificed too much. It's the silent power of spirits that, in a closed environment, act upon fathers and mothers and eventually bring them down. Much of the deterioration and weakness attributed to old age originates from the negative influence of a group of spirits who continually try to outdo and dominate each other, consciously or unconsciously. A man may run his large company with drive and joy, but his sons increasingly interfere in the business. A silent, youthful force conspires against the old, creating a force that a single individual can hardly oppose. It's an intense, continuous, and permanent pressure in a specific direction. Its effects are even more potent when the father doesn't realize the pressure exerted upon him, when he's unaware of this hidden force. All he notices is that he's starting to feel tired. The old energy gives way, and the man attributes it to encroaching old age. Spending 10 minutes arguing with one's own destiny or envying the happiness of others generates a sum of forces destined to undermine our own luck. Every thought of envy or hatred returns to us like a boomerang. Unpleasant feelings towards people who swim in wealth are a waste of time that not only brings us misfortune, but destroys the happiness that could have fallen into our lap. Most sick people prepare their sickbed spiritually, working hard and painfully for years to achieve it. Those who expect misfortune are screaming for it and will undoubtedly get it. Bad habits accumulated throughout life must be nipped in the bud. The weakness generated by low self-esteem is a prime example. A person with low self-esteem is not as valued by others as one who respects themselves. Without self-esteem, no one will be willing to help you improve your position. There won't be a bundle of thoughts to wrap you up. Many people who examine themselves conclude that there are positions in life they would never accept. Out of 10 dishwashers, 9 would never think of themselves as managers of the hotel chain they now humbly serve. However, Sometimes, a person in a similarly precarious situation can rise to a much higher position because they dared to think it. That was the invisible driving force that led them to achieve it. If we are persistent, destiny will always take us where we want to be spiritually. And even if we don't reach the goal directly, at least we will get closer to it, reaching a position that will be better than lying in the gutter without goals or ambitions. Whoever believes that something they offer others has little value externalizes a force that makes others think it is indeed worthless. If you want to sell diamonds on the street, but your appearance and behavior make others doubt their authenticity, 99% of potential buyers will, due to the suggestion of your thoughts, think you're trying to sell them polished pieces of glass. The only buyer who recognizes the diamonds as genuine will try to deceive you, thus reinforcing your own doubts. Do not bend. Never feel belittled in the presence of anyone, or you will pour into your state of mind a torrent of enslaving dependency and open the floodgate that will let the same torrent pass through. In the face of any unworthy event, you must admire and honor the talent of others, but always as king to king, with the pure and profound desire that the same talent awakens and is born in you. Teach your children never to think they are worthless. If they get used to not having self-esteem, others will also get used to seeing them as inferior beings, now as children and later as adults. There is nothing more harmful to an individual than to belittle themselves, and many children begin their lives weakened by the burden of eternal criticism. Teach your children to dream, to believe, and to expect that they will succeed, because repeated hope in success creates the right motives, the right means, and the right path to achieve it. Having to endure injustice is even more reprehensible than committing it. Today, we all continue to believe in many lies. The error does not manifest itself, so we continue to live according to our subconscious mistakes, and suffering emanates from these subconscious errors. When we discover hidden errors in ourselves, instead of becoming depressed, we should rejoice, just as a sailor rejoices when they find the leak that could have sunk their ship. Once our mistakes are recognized, they are subjugated to self-confession. If we succeed in this, and if we also manage to overcome our foolish pride, responsible for our lack of will to seek escape, we will have taken a great step on the path to eternal happiness. Repeatedly dwelling on our own mistakes is harmful to the psyche and detrimental to our health. The true nourishment of the spirit is thoughts that are incessantly renewed, our ever-changing and ever-growing interpretations of everything that happens within us and around us. Learning to look at things with new eyes each day, to daily fly over the plans, opinions, and objectives we had set for the day that ends. That is the state of mind by which the spirit becomes capable of receiving the daily bread that renews our body, our favorite sense of fear. The entire humanity never stops fearing pain, death, losing money or love, and anything else. In addition, each of us has our favorite fear that we pamper to satiety. This extends to the most trivial things. The streets are full of people who, if they have nothing better to fear, at least fear missing the next bus or tram. The more sensitive the human being, the more they suffer under these currents that surround them, until they learn, by asking for strength in silence, to build around them a wall of positive thoughts on which the alien worlds bounce. Every human being has their favorite fear, a disease they have never suffered from, but always expect, or anything else whose loss would affect them in a special way. Any little thing or casual word is enough for their favorite fear to immediately appear in their consciousness, which after so many years of training is exposed to the devastating storm. This current vibrates virtuously precisely in the chord of our nature that makes our favorite weaknesses sound. Then the body also suffers. There are myriads of different symptoms: weakness, lack of appetite, fatigue of the limbs, inability to concentrate on our fundamental professional tasks, etc. The ability to receive thoughts can easily become a source of weakness or strength. It is precisely the sensitive and highly developed spirits that often have fragile bodies because they unconsciously absorb many harmful waves without having any idea of their existence. Personal relationships with unsuitable people are one of the main sources of these ills. The finer feminine organism is even more exposed to the shadows and mental rays that surround it. The man, absorbed in his affairs, sometimes manages to seize a certain positive energy that allows him to repel the currents of fear. The woman, on the other hand, often suffers 1,000 times more within the walls of the home than her husband imagines, who keeps wondering how his wife suffers from those eternal illnesses, fixed ideas, and nervousness. When you are irritated, you diminish your power of attraction towards the good. You also diminish it when you feel depressed, dependent, nervous, or confused. Then the force acts in the opposite direction, towards the bad side. Coveting the goods of another, for example, filling the brain with machinations about how to access an inheritance, fueling worries or even envy and hatred towards those who might be in a better position for an inheritance, looking greedily at any other's property, for example, flattering the rich in the hope of obtaining a benefit. All this fosters mental states that prevent the creation of that great force of attraction. They lead to a torrent of petty, villainous, and narrow thoughts. Another great loss is to be carried away by malicious prejudices against others, even if only by inwardly participating in the nonsense of the majority. When you engage in conversations with people below your own level, you lose power, even if your supremacy achieves some small victories. You also lose power when you destroy the character or problems of others, no matter how witty and joking you may be, because you generate and emit mental forces that prevent you from adopting a much stronger stance towards humanity, and thus achieving an emancipation that comes from yourself and allows you to access directly the best of others in direct contact from core to core, leaving everything else below and behind you. Ignore as far as possible the thoughts of humanity. Talk as little as possible about it and with it. Keep your distance with a shield of goodwill and fight against any shadow of hatred, indignation, and contempt that could serve humanity as a dark intermediary, as a messenger of all that envy, that fanatical and concentrated malice against the finer man whose mere presence it already perceives from afar. If this finer man throws a line of hatred, he is lost. Only an active wall of benevolence can sufficiently protect his soul. If, despite this, the encounter is inevitable, be positive from the beginning, that is, launch currents instead of absorbing them. Inwardly deny access to everything that comes from this environment. If you make their foolish worries your own, your power of attraction will be reversed, as you will absorb their effects and mix your confidence with their skepticism, mutilating your firmness with their hesitations. The human being who still knows when they lie is still relatively authentic and fresh. In them, the lie is encapsulated in knowledge like trichina in meat. But most have their organism so infected by the lie that they can no longer make this distinction. The nature of lying isn't just the conscious utterance of falsehoods, but also the deception we inflict upon ourselves. A lie we've embraced in good faith blocks the building blocks of truth, just like any other lie. Many lies, barely holding on, can often be salvaged by the fresh blood of truth. Much like rabbit breeds on the brink of extinction, are mixed with pure breeds to ensure their survival. But the worst lies are half-truths. Welcoming someone into our home when we wish them in hell. Smiling without the slightest desire, feigning concern for someone's well-being only because they're wealthy and we hope to profit. Joining a religion or association out of snobbery, greed, or prestige, preaching half-believed truths, or saying a half-hearted yes when we mean a resounding no. These meager samples from the jar of everyday lies, which otherwise deserve little attention, breed an evil that affects even the body. Like alcohol, it's not the occasional excess, but the small continuous doses of poison, ingested unconsciously daily, that harm the body without the poisoned realizing it. Once saturated, the body can no longer eliminate the poison until it falls ill and eventually succumbs. Lies don't last. Their fabric deteriorates so the spirit can find the right instrument to achieve its goal. In short, another failed incarnation. What seems bad and decadent is nothing more than the infinite consciousness abandoning an untenable position. Lying's second major drawback is that it pulls us into the circle of all other liars, whom we're more inclined to believe due to an inner kinship than an honest person. The cunning businessman in one sector is often duped by an equally cunning businessman in another, because they dislike genuine, straightforward people. There's a silent antagonism without a word spoken. The lies we daily feed the cosmos through words, breath, presence, and life are nothing compared to the lies we unconsciously believe, allowing them to operate in good faith within us and those around us. It's a psychic plague. Grey hair, wrinkles, any sign of cellular collapse are the materialization of such errors, signs that erroneous ideas have temporarily settled in consciousness. The fact that today someone has to ask a doctor what to eat, who knows as little about it as the patient, is an alienation of instincts found in nature only in some degenerate predatory ants, unable to find food for themselves and forced to be fed by slave ants. Doctors may know something about diseases but nothing about health, if only because the latter is a scarce commodity. Throughout their lives, doctors don't interact with normal, healthy people, hence the appalling statistics on protein needs, concocted by the brilliant Living, who experimented on German students with beer bellies, miserable engines needing triple the fuel due to this protein dose determined from inept samples. For over 30 years, protein poisons were administered across Europe to perfectly healthy individuals, particularly children, thus propagating acute appendicitis, gout, and other metabolic diseases. Recognizing an ailment is half the cure. When negativity washes over us, it's crucial to acknowledge that we're being crossed by an external negative current, that we're in contact with numerous other dark and taciturn spirits who exchange their repulsive moods, amplifying them to unbearable levels. We must pray, implore, and seek the strength needed to break free from this stream of negative thoughts. We must purge from our consciousness anything unpleasant or incomplete, the negative qualities of others, and all the ugly and disagreeable things around us. Otherwise, we'll cling to the images of these thoughts, which will ultimately materialize in their specific correlation. Whoever imagines a person always at the moment they commit a characteristic error will likely end up making the same mistake. Ultimately, everything must be externalized, just as language demands. Everyone should make a habit of transforming all their thoughts into words, as this makes them more physical and thus removable by physical means. Words are the vehicle that carries the ignoble from the soul. Whoever turns night into day misses the most important appointments with the subconscious. Tranquility serves as a force accumulator throughout the natural kingdom. Periods of activity are followed by periods of absolute tranquility. Plant circulation rests during winter, and animals limit themselves to eating and sleeping. Even the earth rests, awaiting new seeds. If from time to time humans could surrender to this perfect passivity, those capable of absorbing more of the sun's hidden power would shine in a spiritual and bodily renaissance. Senses and forces would awaken, whose existence many still vehemently deny. Thanks to their tranquil and introspective lives, Eastern peoples have attained a greater degree of power over these new senses than we have. They may not possess the conqueror's strength and dominance. India is subject to England, but in the end, they conquer the highly externalized Western culture. We are already bowing at India's feet, learning our first lesson, the alphabet of those laws and forces unknown to our sages. What are these forces? Where do they come from? How have they developed? From the power of silent spirits harmoniously oriented towards a goal for thousands of years. Yet, we nurture the superstition that we're incapable of accomplishing anything without haste, nervousness, and fatigue. Nature needs rest to undertake the work of regeneration. This law, operating in the most primitive life forms, also applies to higher forms. In anyone's life, rest is essential. There are periods when our bodies and minds signal fatigue, indicating an ongoing transformation. Nature puts us in dry dock, so to speak. If we only adhered to these laws, we would emerge from these periods regenerated in body and soul within weeks or months, as nature asks nothing more than our silence while it carries out its regenerative work. We often say that those in midlife have reached or even surpassed their peak vitality and strength, and from then on, due to natural reasons, they will wither and decline like leaves. According to spiritual law, this unwavering belief in aging will inevitably make us old. This change at the peak of life only signifies that our body wants to regenerate, to be reborn. This recreation demands absolute tranquility because our highly spiritual ego is working to effect this change. During this time, We mustn't overexert ourselves, just like in early childhood. But as a rule, we deny nature this rest, forcing our exhausted bodies to make efforts for which they are unprepared. During this period, while nature tries to give us new life, to make us stronger, we don't allow it, and we destroy ourselves. In most cases, humans are incapable of giving themselves the tranquility they need. They must go here and there, working year after year to secure their existence. This doesn't change the outcome. Christ, Moses, and all seers and mages rested in tranquility, accumulating psychic forces that once concentrated on a sick person gave them new life. In the story of Martha and Mary, the latter chose the better part because, away from domestic chores, she silently accumulated strength that, when well directed, achieved more in a few seconds than Martha with her daily hardships. Martha worked herself to death while Mary regenerated. The culture of tranquility increases with presence of mind. Presence of mind is nothing more than the ability to mobilize all our knowledge, capacity for action, firmness, and tact at any moment. Its value lies in the simultaneous presence of all these qualities, which are concentrated in tranquil spirits and not dispersed by chasing 1,000 different things at once. Whoever manages to conserve their strength and rest their spirit will have nerves of steel, emanating a fluid capable of easily taming the wildest horse. Courage is an insurmountable magnetic cloud. Its possibilities are limitless. We can make our bodies capable of resisting any material influence. We can make each of our organs 10 times more resilient than they are now. Where there's a bit of haste, there's always a bit of fear. Whoever runs for the train does so out of fear of being left behind, and that fear further increases the chance of being stranded. Whoever rushes to a meeting or appointment does so for fear of the negative consequences of being late. It's astonishing how much small change we spend daily on fears. Through unconscious training, these minor psychoses can flood a person's spirit to the point that they end up fearing losing something at any time and place, even when there's no risk of doing so. For example, running bitterly after a tram as if it were irreplaceable when another one comes along behind it, or in the worst case, 3 minutes later. But the fear of having to wait 3 minutes becomes a mountain, like a pillow in a feverish dream, a terrifying possibility simply out of habit. This catastrophic mood will accompany that person during meals, walks, vacations, in short, in everything they undertake, making it increasingly difficult to keep a clear head. The emotion underpinning this entire state of mind and behavior is none other than fear. Fear is the inability to control the emergence of thoughts. Our powerless self spews everything out like a mud geyser, staining our daily lives and covering them with a grey crust. This entirely unconscious training leads our spirit to such a chronic state that it reacts with panic to any trivial event, incubating disappointments where none exist. But whoever cultivates fears of any kind builds a dead end through which, in the decisive moments of destiny, they can only circulate in terror. Never be driven by the desire to make money, to accumulate wealth at the expense of health. It's like cutting off your feet to buy a pair of boots. Everything we undertake can be done without haste, fatigue, or robots. If you're tormented, it's a sign that something is wrong in your endeavor. When the spirit and body work harmoniously and playfully, the greatest strength is generated. This strength, properly trained for 2 hours, can achieve more than 10 hours of rushing. In these moments of tranquility, parents should be exempt from all the demands of their adult children. The same goes for birds and other forest animals. Only human mothers are never sheltered from the demands of their offspring until they reach the grave exhausted and drained. But they should be free. They should return to how they were as maidens before becoming mothers. Motherhood is an indispensable and crucial phase of human existence for certain abilities and recognitions to mature. We shouldn't stagnate our entire lives in a single experience. A proper relationship between people is the most powerful means to achieve happiness, health, and success. In this context, by relationship, we mean something that goes far beyond physical closeness. The closeness of a person depends on the intensity with which we treat them psychically. The physical distance of their body is irrelevant. What are social relationships if not a permanent tolerating and being tolerated? a rumination of the same words, gestures, and thoughts year after year. They are dead people who must be left to bury their own dead. Authentic and vibrant life is a state with infinite facets, an opening of spiritual currents through which spirits of the same level exchange their forces and ideas. These are the sources that ascend to the eternal being. Sympathy is the most important factor in all destiny. The mania for everything cheap flows parallel to fears and misfortunes, never reaching the current of enterprising spirits and victorious forces. Individuals living in these currents never meet. Whoever wants to approach the victors of life must change the direction of their spirituality. Only then can they follow their path. People who gather to pour their curses and envy on others will have all that harm fall upon them with tenfold force, because they will attract the same thoughts they exude within. The thoughts that are realized most frequently are also those that materialize most intensely in the body. We absorb the errors and imperfections of others because we are psychically occupied with them, in the scandal and revelry of other people's imperfections. There's something of incense and ecstasy, something akin to champagne, but ultimately, this kind of amusement comes at a steep price. Sympathy is strength. There's an active listening that acts as a tonic, and the benevolence of a single person without a trace of envy or mockery is an irresistible current whose value cannot be calculated in dollars and cents. Similarly, wishing ill upon another is an element that the person who silently perceives that wish against them becomes a strong, invisible wall that returns everything without a word or a glance. Only a continuous current of kindness on their part can deflect this effect without consequences. That's why it's also so dangerous to make enemies. No matter how just or logical the reason may seem, every turbulent assembly, every family dispute, every encounter between people floods the invisible with destructive substance. If any insignificant trifle manages to irritate you, you unknowingly place yourself where this destructive substance acts, causing any small outburst of your bad mood to awaken the entire chicken coop, which will be more difficult to escape from than it was to awaken it. The only possible help is to stop thinking about it, that is, to immediately change your spiritual direction, allowing yourself at most a brief, satisfied glance over your shoulder at the pile of alien anger that was about to pounce on you and is now left out in the rain, thanks to your small private concession. There are poisoned spiritual currents, just as there are poisoned metallic vapors or toxic arsenic. Whoever remains passive for a single hour in a room full of envious, hateful, seismic, or enslaved people absorbs from them an element of poisoned thoughts, full of disease and destructive force, an element infinitely more dangerous than a toxic chemical agent because its effects are more subtle and mysterious, often manifesting days later and erroneously attributed to other causes. Probably never has there been as much hatred as there is today. Hatred is not limited to castes and classes. It is not only hated vertically and horizontally, but also diagonally. Peoples hate patriotically, from party to party, and in between, like small varicose veins in the body of humanity, circulate the innumerable private hatreds from heart to heart. One must be especially passive during meals. Whoever ingests food, that is, matter for the preservation of their body, should only do so in a calm, balanced, and cheerful state of mind. Eating and complaining, arguing, or doing business means being active precisely when one should be in a state of absolute negativity. Whether these complaints or discussions occur aloud or only in thoughts is irrelevant. It's also harmful when someone at the same table feeds this negative state of mind, against which one must defend themselves internally, but endure externally, which requires a good amount of energy. Being positive in itself is good, but one should only share the table with people who live in the purest sympathy. When all the people sharing a space have come together to transmit the same thought, the entire space fills or charges with this highly spiritual ether. If this thought refers to power and help, something will prevail in the space that, like a fluid, will be transmitted to the next person who enters this space, injecting them with strength and help. If hundreds or thousands of people come to this sanatorium or sanctuary with the same spirit, each of them will leave their grain of sand of strength and help. Over time, this space will become a powerful accumulator of spirituality, as long as it is not used for other purposes, and access to other low, mundane or selfish thoughts is prevented. The force accumulated in that space will help heal those with sick bodies who have come to it to ask in faith. The space will strengthen the weak-willed, straighten the depressed, as if invisible rays were holding them up. However, no one should remain in that place for more than a few minutes to prevent fatigue or low thoughts from accumulating there. We all have a vital need for a companion with whom we can be ourselves. We need at least one person with whom we can share our moods and feelings, before whom we can remove our mask and not have to be constantly on guard. We need moments where we don't have to weigh our words to say something intelligent and correct at all times, to have our psychic bow relaxed instead of constantly taut. Sometimes we need the privilege and freedom to be trivial, to say silly things without fear of being laughed at or met with long faces. In every life, even the happiest, there are thousands of things, events, and scenes that would be better forgotten, even happy memories, because even happiness can become stale. The level of our friends should also be able to grow each year, and tomorrow should be more exciting than yesterday. Whoever forgets creates space for new thoughts, and consequently, for a new life. Whoever hermetically seals themselves in present or past happiness will eventually become old and grey, even with it. Forgetting doesn't mean total annihilation, which would be impossible anyway, since we are nothing more than the sum of our experiences. Every scene, every smell, every word, and every time are organic components integrated into our being, even if in a diffuse, subterranean, and invisible way, but always ready to reappear at the doorstep due to a series of mysterious associative laws. However, it's advisable not to let certain groups of selfish and manic memories cross that door. A correct experience is one that we have forgotten. Whoever wishes to advance victoriously in a straight line towards perfection must not forget to balance the load their vehicle carries beforehand. Some people tend to recreate in their minds old battles against their adversaries. It's undeniable that these old spiritual battles on the blackbird field always end well. That is, with the unconditional defeat of the imagined enemy. Here a continuous story is woven, infinitely rich in pleasant variations, culminating in a most delicious ending, with the dog trembling, its tail curled, defeated from head to toe, prostrate before our imposing summary of all its evil. Whoever believes that this has no more relevance than just being an innocent and cheap punishment for someone who was going down the wrong path is gravely mistaken, because this game is one of the greatest luxuries a human being can afford. It costs lives. Whoever practices it enters a cloud of cadaverous poison, hypnotizing themselves into a fictional, already decomposed life, sacrificing themselves for an imaginary triumph in the past and a real triumph in the future. Whoever practices revenge is someone who acts on behalf of the past, that is, with an energy that is 180 degrees misdirected. No one who feeds on stale thoughts, the excrement of their stale egos, can keep their body fresh and beautiful. The new influxes, the young future, will get trapped by the sticky cells of the soul. The flesh, bones, marrow, and blood have become a rigid shell, a dead spirit. The weight of this ever-growing crust leads us to a state of weakness and lamentation. Only those who manage to shed their worn-out shell and move towards the new with each young thought will achieve rejuvenation in their lives, and those thoughts will also materialize in the new body that corresponds to them. Being able to die each day means that any past thought already belongs to the world of the dead. Spirits that grow healthily at the end of each day get rid of a part of themselves forever. They have simply lived to the fullest. Clinging to thoughts of the past is detrimental. Psychic substance must be expelled, just as the epidermis sheds countless cells daily. Otherwise, the skin's respiration, circulation, nutrition, and everything else would suffer. People who continuously renew their thoughts can experience entire worlds in a single day. For them, happiness hardly depends on their location or circumstances. They can attract it even in prison, while those imprisoned by their old ideas rot away even in a palace. This is a path towards near total independence from the physical, and independence is power. As long as we depend, to any extent, on another person, a food, a drug, or a stimulant, we remain slaves. The only liberation from the prisons of material and spiritual misery is the ability to constantly create new thoughts. However, even the most vibrant, joyful, and fertile ideas must temporarily disappear from our memory for a business, study, or skill to have the greatest possible success. It's necessary that every day, at a certain hour, we completely forget about the business, science, or art that occupies us. Otherwise, we'll confuse the path with the goal, focusing on the former, which should never happen. On that path towards greater and more lasting success, there may be a silent group of invisible helpers who see further and are one step and one action ahead of us. We are blind on that mysterious path full of surprises, having manically entered a dead end. Sometimes it seems like we're not making progress, but the truth is that circumstances are just waiting for our knowledge to become clear enough. Whoever undertakes something with a grand and valuable goal, and after having done everything in their power, continues to encounter incomprehensible obstacles and setbacks, should immediately stop doing anything beyond what is strictly necessary. It's better to persistently ask their spirit to stop obsessing over the matter and to trust exclusively in the mysterious and secret force that hides behind all authentic things. Sleep and eat alone, and have fun if you're aware of having done everything in your power. Disconnect and stop doing anything. The prevailing spirit and mood shape our abdomen and limbs, making us unpleasant or pleasant, attractive or repulsive to others, and most importantly, to ourselves. They shape our gestures, our mannerisms, and our way of walking. The slightest tremor of a muscle is due to a particular state of mind or thought. A spirit that possesses determination always walks with decisive steps, while insecure spirits drag their feet and stumble. Determination stretches every muscle and fills it with a wonderful and invigorating fluid, especially when this determination is directed towards a goal that benefits not only ourselves, but also others. Selfishness that integrates the well-being of others into its works is wise selfishness, because in spirit, we all form a unit in which other invigorating and life-giving currents flow, fostering what is good for many. In these invigorating and life-giving currents from the invisible, our little ego boat also sails towards its own fulfillment. We are all members of a great body. Infinite invisible nerves run through space from being to being. Every perverse thought is a pulsation that passes through myriads of beings. But to favor the fruitful processes of interconnection of thoughts between us and others, we must preserve them in such a way that they are always fresh and chemically effective. This is only achieved through the art of forgetting, which is nothing more than the ability to correctly evacuate consumed or decomposed substances. Learning to forget is as important as learning to remember. Old age often makes us see things as they were 50 years ago. Events and people always awaken the same associations of ideas in us, so the same story repeats itself hundreds of times. A brain like this cannot be nourished with new ideas because it tries to live in the past. Decline and death are the consequences. Little by little, the spirit loses power over the body. Memory and senses begin to falter, limbs tremble, flesh dries. Symptoms that the psyche, for lack of daily bread, that is, new thoughts, is losing its dominion over the body. To truly live, to increase our spiritual and physical strength with age, to go through each phase of our existence with ever-increasing charm, to defeat our last great adversary, death, it is necessary to continuously keep the process of evacuating old thoughts in operation. Boredom is a disease. Not knowing what to do with ourselves, sitting around constantly ruminating on the excrement of our thoughts until, from so much poisoning, everything seems consumed and flat. Trying to kill time is trying to kill life. Whoever succeeds temporarily loses the connection with the great source, the contact with infinite consciousness. This is the worst disease that exists. Await success with tranquility. Whoever is willing to take responsibility will succeed. Whoever is not willing to do so will be an underpaid pawn of whoever has the courage to assume it. Dare, even if only in your imagination, to run a large company and manage large sums of money. Dare in silence, in a small chamber of your spirit. Don't let anyone make fun of you. Seeing yourself always at the bottom of the ladder is too cheap. Practice the art of waiting. Waiting for success with tranquility is the most effective and fruitful method in the world to invest the strength of your thoughts. Having misfortunes, foreseeing obstacles, obsessing over possible difficulties is the surest path to ruin and poverty. Responsibility does not necessarily imply worry, anger, restlessness, or irritability. The culture of the spirit, which teaches us not to worry about things that have not yet arrived, does not allow us to have thoughts about responsibility until the moment they are necessary or beneficial. We should often talk about our big and important plans, but only with people who have similar interests and goals. These conversations should be repeated with some regularity, preferably at the same time and in the same place, that is, not just anywhere in a restaurant, on the street, or on the train, because they lose strength and reveal secrets even when there is no eavesdropper nearby. As the saying goes, walls have ears. In crowded places, in any room that does not emanate peace, there is always an invisible, busy, thieving, and cunning agent ready to steal secrets to sell them to another brain. When a room is reserved exclusively for these intimate conversations, which should always be friendly and pleasant, and if this room is used for this purpose for a long time, an atmosphere of thoughts advantageous to the planned plans will be generated. This positive atmosphere will grow over time so that in this room, ideas will appear more easily and quickly than anywhere else. It will become a place of inspiration, open to the impulses of the spirit. However, if in such a room there is an argument with anger, or if one of the people present is inwardly agitated, a force detrimental to all things in life is generated in this room, acting in all directions. Knowing how to keep a secret considerably increases its power of attraction. Walls have ears. Over time, your secrets escape through the ether, giving rise to rumors even when no one is around. If you truly want to keep a secret, forget it. Let it fade from your consciousness and only remember it when absolutely unavoidable. Don't play with it, not even in your thoughts, because everything you think you execute, you temporarily place outside of yourself in a substance accessible to everyone. From there, it could reach another brain in the form of a premonition or volatile suspicion, which, thanks to your continuous repetition, ends up maturing into an absolute certainty. For example, some people insistently claim that two people have had sexual relations long before it has happened. Every great success has been kept secret because otherwise it would have awakened conscious or unconscious envy, which, once it has glimpsed the direction, deploys its forces to prevent it. Thousands of people have had their luck cut short by speaking openly at an inopportune moment or place. If you don't know how to proceed in a given situation, business, or venture, simply wait. Stop dwelling on it. This will only strengthen your will and your goal. In this way, you will only reap if you store those forces that come from everywhere. They can come in the form of a sudden idea, inspiration, coincidence, or opportunity. During this wait, you don't stop. On the contrary, your aspirations will mentally lead you towards the occurrence, towards the opportunity you need. Appendix. Some maxims you will be given to the extent that you have given. Never teach your child to despise themselves. If they get used to feeling that way, others will also get used to despising them, first as a child and then as an adult. Teach your child only to dream and expect success. The prolonged expectation of this success creates the conditions, the means, and the ways to achieve it. It doesn't matter who we associate with professionally or in business, but we must be prudent before sharing our leisure hours with certain people. The golden middle path is often through the sand. Family members who worry about us often work towards our ruin. Never expect illness or pain for tomorrow, no matter how much illness or pain you have suffered today. For tomorrow, expect only strength. Look at things with a clear gaze and learn to fly over your plans, beliefs, and goals from the previous day daily. Instead of getting depressed when we discover previously hidden errors, we should rejoice in their causes, just as a sailor rejoices at having found the leak that would otherwise have sunk their ship. Much depends on the person with whom we share our leisure hours, because from them come elements that can mean life or death, courage or cowardice, lucidity or impotence. A person with low self-esteem will not be judged by others as they would be if they had more self-love. In the best of cases, the doctor understands something about illness, but nothing about health because they hardly have contact with normal and healthy people. Every thought is a brick in our nascent destiny, for better or worse. No one should tolerate others shaping them with their thoughts, that is, in the way that seems most convenient to them. Prudent people who evaluate and reflect on everything always fall into the trap, because always expecting difficulties means creating them. To drive any enterprise, you have to start with imagination. To say that something is impossible because it seems impossible is to cultivate the disastrous habit of rejection. Big and important plans should be discussed, but only with people who have similar goals and interests. Focusing on a goal is a very wise form of selfishness. Determination tenses every muscle and wonderfully fills it with a life-giving fluid. No one who feeds on obsolete thoughts will manage to keep their body fresh and beautiful. Fear is just another name for the inability to control the emergence of new thoughts. Only people who live in the purest sympathy are worthy of sharing the table. Courage is like a magnetic cloud that nothing can penetrate. 60 seconds of daydreaming are 60 seconds of living peace for the body and soul. But I've had good times and intend to have even better times. Family ties are a sum of unconscious tyrannies. People who travel a lot and constantly see new places, and people are characterized by a certain degree of vitality that people who live in the same place year after year do not have. The contemplative life is creative. Don't be afraid to entertain yourself. Heaven on earth is created by adopting the right attitude towards the trivialities of everyday life. It is healthy to surround yourself with colorful objects. What pleases the eyes refreshes the mind, and what refreshes the mind refreshes the body. When you think bright thoughts, you will attract bright things to you. Every thought of envy or hatred will return to you like a boomerang. As we conclude our summary of Thoughts Are Things, let us reflect on the profound journey we have undertaken. Within each of us lies a duality, the ethereal spirit, an ageless architect of wisdom and dreams, and the earthbound body, tethered to the familiar comforts and limitations of the physical world. This dance between our higher and lower selves is a timeless struggle, a symphony of conflicting desires and aspirations. Our higher self, the conduit to the infinite wisdom of the universe, whispers of limitless potential and untapped power. It urges us to break free from the chains of doubt and fear, to transcend the mundane, and to embrace the extraordinary. Yet, the lower self, rooted in the tangible and the known, often dismisses these whispers as mere fantasy, clinging to the perceived safety of the familiar. Prentice Mulford, a pioneer of the New Thought movement, has illuminated the transformative power of our thoughts. He has shown us that our minds hold the alchemical key to shaping our reality. By understanding and harnessing the power of our thoughts, we can create the life we desire, unlocking a world of infinite possibilities. As we part ways, remember that the journey of self-discovery and transformation is ongoing. The teachings of Mulford are not just a beacon of hope, but a call to action. Embrace the whispers of your higher self. Dare to dream beyond the confines of the known. Recognize that every thought, every belief, and every aspiration carries the potential to reshape your reality. May this audiobook serve as a guide and inspiration, empowering you to harness the boundless power of your thoughts. Let us continue this journey together, striving for a life filled with purpose, peace, and the extraordinary.